Madam Speaker, what a pleasure to be with you today. Isn't she great? Look at this, standing room only. Where is the class of 62? Let's see the class of 62. There you are. Okay. All right. How about 64? 64 is out in force. Well, my class, 74 is out in force, 50th reunion class. And let's see all our students. Where are all those students again? Let's see, you're all there. Yes, there you are. And faculty and staff. So we're all here today in part because now I'll get very partisan. We're here today thanks to Nancy Pelosi because she has really brought our democracy together for us, and we are so grateful to you for all that you have done to promote and help our democracy. Now, it's not my job to introduce. We have one of our great student leaders, Lexi Bernier, who is going to introduce Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. So Lexi, take it away.
Okay. Thank you. We are so pleased to welcome our alumni, member of the class of 1962, Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. The Honorable Nancy Pelosi served as the 52nd Speaker of the House of Representatives, having made history in 2007 when she was elected the first woman to serve as Speaker of the House. She made history again in January 2019 when she regained her position second in line to the presidency, the first person to do so in more than 6 decades. Prior to her election as Speaker, she was the leader of the House Democrats for 20 years and previously served as House Democratic Whip. She has represented California's 11th congressional district in Congress for 37 years, since 1987. Speaker Emerita Pelosi is widely respected as the chief architect of a generation defining legislation under 2 Democratic administrations, including the Affordable Care Act and the American Rescue Plan. She is a tireless champion of women's rights, civil rights, and human rights around the world. In 2024, President Biden recognized her achievements with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. Speaker Emerita Pelosi and her husband, Paul Pelosi, have 5 grown children and 10 grandchildren. In 2022, Nancy and Paul Pelosi established the Pelosi Chair in Global Affairs and Politics at Trinity. In 2024, Nancy Pelosi published her latest book, The Art of Power, My Story as America's First Woman Speaker of the House. We hope she will come back to Trinity for a book discussion in 2025. Please join me in welcoming Speaker Emerita Pelosi.
Thank you all. Thank you, Madam President. As we call it, President of the Student Council. And thank you, Madam President, President of the Student Council, Madam President. It has a nice ring to it, doesn't it, Madam President? And what a time for us to come together. Thank you for your very warm welcome back to Trinity. As we're in this auditorium, I'm remembering the first time I saw Barry Goldwater speak. It was on this stage. Remember? You remember Rita, Mary Catherine, Barry Goldwater? First time we heard about isotopes, it was a presentation on science on this stage. So it brings back many memories. But I was saying to Rita and Mary Catherine as we pulled up that I just, every time we pull up, I think of when my parents brought me here that first day. And it was just so transformative for me. I loved it from the first minute we stepped up those steps and into this building. Rita and I were at Alumni Hall with Celia. Mary Catherine and Rita and I went last week, a week and a half ago, to Celia's funeral in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I know she would be here. She's with us spiritually, but we had a bond people are envious of, right, Mary? They're envious of that. Our friendships from Trinity College have been such a source of strength and love and fun for us for these many decades. Now, I know this is the year for the class of 1964, the younger class, the behind us. I'm so glad that Emerita is here. She's been my friend for many years, too. And I was so happy to hear that you were coming back for your class reunion. This is such a connection, a sense of community that means so much to all of us. To network, God bless you all. The nuns on the bus have been responsible for so many good things in terms of public policy in our country. And so I know that we're going to have questions, so we may speak about what you want to hear about. But first, I just want to say a couple of things about what I was hearing in the previous panel, and thank you all for your excellent presentations. This is a very interesting time. When I came to Trinity, you couldn't major in political science. You had to major in history, then you could minor in political science. That was a long time ago. But why I bring that up is because I want to talk a little history with you as to put in perspective what is happening now. But I learned at Trinity then that at the time of our revolution, Thomas Paine said, "The times have found us." Found us, our founders, those visionaries, to declare independence, writing the most beautiful statement ever written, the Declaration of Independence, non-religious statement ever written. And then the time found them to declare war on the greatest naval power at the time and win the war and write a constitution, which was a series of compromises because that's the way it was. But with the vision and the values of our founders, fortunately, they made it amendable. So from that time on, our country had always been about expanding freedom. It was dedicated to freedom and expanded freedom, whether it was abolishing slavery, black men having the right to vote, women having the right to vote, Roe v. Wade, marriage equality, those kinds of things, until the Dobbs decision, which was the first time that our freedoms had been curtailed. But I leapfrogged over Abraham Lincoln. The times found him to save our country from some of the same sentiments that we are hearing today. So the times have found us to save, to honor the vision and values of our founders, the courage to form this country, revering what Lincoln did to hold it together, but now understanding the times have found us. People say, why do you say democracy is on the ballot? What does that mean? Well, what does democracy mean? You've heard it. You've heard Reverend, is he still with us? I don't know if he's still, where'd he go? Yeah, okay. Well, we heard him talk about the, and you too, Renee as well. It's about the rule of law. It's about free and fair elections. It's about a peaceful transition of government. It's about, an independent judiciary. It's about individual freedoms for people. That's all on the ballot. That's all on the ballot. And that's, democracy is a very personal issue about freedom, even about the books you read, the family you have, or not, as you decide. So this is a very a difficult time because you don't want to be a fearmonger, but there is a lot at risk in the election. I'm so glad you spent time, because when we talk about the character of our country, immigration is so important in that regard. And let the record show that I am now, for the second time, going to mention a Republican president, Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, he said this: "This is the last speech I will make as President of the United States." Now, those of you who were of our generation know that he was the great communicator. This was a big opening sentence, Madam President, for him to say, "This is the last speech I will make as President of the United States, and I want to communicate a message to the country I love." And he went on talking about the Statue of Liberty and what the beacon of hope it was to the world, and how it attracted people to our country. And because our door was open, America became preeminent in the world, said Ronald Reagan. And if we ever close that door, we will cease to be preeminent in the world. Ronald Reagan. I speak about that to my colleagues. They don't applaud for Ronald Reagan. You don't applaud for Ronald Reagan? The Republicans, you don't applaud? You can applaud for Ronald Reagan. And so when the bill was passed in 1986, the Simpson-Mazzoli Act, he signed the bill, but he said they didn't go far enough. He even went further, tested in court, survived in terms of uniting families and the rest, and George Herbert Walker Bush continued that, and George W. Bush believed in it, wanted to, but could not get any of his party to go along with it, sad to say. But that's who America was, and has been, always been bipartisan too, one way or another, pro or con, some on each side on those issues. When I was seeing the pictures of how the Irish may vote, last week I was in Louisville, Kentucky, and I reminded them that a time before I had been there for the 200th anniversary of Henry Clay becoming the Speaker of the House. This was a number of years ago, 12, but a number of years ago, but nonetheless, no, when he became Speaker, no, but I'm saying when I was there before. It wasn't in Louisville, it was in Lexington, Transylvania. That's the name of a school, right? Oh my gosh. But anyway, I was saying to them that when Henry Clay wanted to run for president, one of the big issues in the country was, should Germans be allowed in the country and be allowed to vote? Germans, because everybody was from UK, England at the time. Should Germans be allowed to vote? And then you see the thing about the Tammany Hall initiative about Irish being allowed to vote, and Italians, and then all the Catholics, and that really got them all riled up. It was a different faith coming in with the Irish, the Italians, the Poles, and the rest, and then the Jewish community. So there's always been a kind of a resistance, but nothing like what we are seeing today. It is so sad. And I have the privilege of serving for 30 years with John Lewis. I loved him so much. And thank you that he was mentioned earlier. And that bill we passed in the House again and again. But the Senate needs 60 votes. But our goal, if there were one bill that is the most important bill to pass, it would be the bill that enabled us to pass the For the People Act about voting rights, ending partisan redistricting, gerrymandering, all that, making democracy more democratic. But you still need 60 votes in the Senate, so we'll have, maybe we can do away with the filibuster to take care of that, okay? But anyway, to the point of the election and the rest, is everybody here ready to make calls, to write postcards, to knock on doors and all? Because that is what, if I just may be for a moment, civic-minded, or you might call it political, but anyway, for whatever candidate you wish. But as I was asked in New York last night, what would you say to people going door to door? What do you want them to tell people? I said, my view is I don't want them to tell them anything. I want them to listen. I want them to thank them for listening. And this is on the phone to thank you for giving me the chance to tell you why I support Kamala Harris, Tim Walz for president and vice president, or whoever you're campaigning for. In our case, we're also doing the House races. So, and then listen to them. Thank them. Tell them why you're there. Listen to them. And understand that you are a great intelligence source, because you will learn what people think and why they may be voting a certain way. And that's very valuable. So as a former party chair in California, I hope you will indulge and enable, thank you for allowing me to say that, because it's about mobilizing, owning the ground. The votes are there for them. We just have to make sure that we get the votes out. So, no, it was mobilization, a message that is unifying for our country, the resources and the money to get the job done, yes. But the most important thing is that mobilization on the ground. And so I tell you, for 12 days or whatever it is until the election, no wasted time, no underutilized resources, and no regrets the day after the election, that we could have just done one more precinct each. So we have a little bit of history, a little bit of politics, because the times have found us as well. Let's get back to Trinity College. When being here now, you know, lots of times I've come and I've seen the students and the rest, and I say, it's nice that you're speaker, but we're going to be president of the United States. You go, girls. So let us thank Pat for the confidence, that, well, of course, the intellectual resource that Trinity University is, and the rest, but the confidence that she has instilled in these mostly girls. I guess there's some men on the weekend. Is that the deal? In the young lady, the student body. And then also to thank you for your leadership role with our Dreamers. I call the Dreamers the gold standard. The gold standard. I thank their parents. I thank their parents' courage of bringing them here. And they've made such a valuable contribution to our country, and so opposed by those on the other side. So I bet a lot is at stake in the election. I know we'll have questions, so I will, rather than tell you some other things I'm thinking about, maybe listen to what you have to say and work it in, okay? Now, again, thank you all so much, because when I mentioned Celia, it's an emotional thing for us because she's so dear to us, but her family showed a picture of us campaigning for John F. Kennedy.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
For John F. Kennedy when we were doing it. And Celia's just up there waving her home.
We remember Celia. She was wonderful.
She was
really.
wonderful.
She was great.
So were all of you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy, so much. Please join us. Why don't you sit right here? Thank you. That was wonderful. Quite a summation. And Lexi. Lexi. And I'm sitting here.
Let's thank Lexi.
Lexi, isn't she great? All right.
Yay, Lexi.
All right. Lexi, I'm keeping the seat warm for you. Hurry up. Get that PhD. So I'm going to start with one question, then we'll go to audience questions. But you mentioned DACA and our Dreamers. And you were here 3 or 4 years ago on this very stage speaking to our students. About 10%, I don't know if the alums know this, about 10% of our undergraduate students are undocumented students. And they come to us through a partnership we have with the Dream.us that was created by our good friend Don Graham. How many Dreamer scholars are here? Let's see our Dreamer scholars. There they are. There they are. Yeah. Yeah. And these are remarkable women, all kinds of student leaders, Phi Beta Kappas, cum laudes, all of that. But here's the thing. Everybody's worried about what's going to happen after this election to both the DACA students, their ability to work, get licenses, and so forth. Is there any way that we can think about hope if the election goes the wrong way? I mean, maybe we have no hope, but what would you say to the young people coming up who are immigrant students who are worried about what's going to happen to immigration policy?
Well, first I would say thank you, and thank you to your parents. Also, you, as we call you, the gold standard. They have made such a contribution in every arena they have been in, whether it's in an academic setting, whether it's in everything, medicine, agriculture, entertainment, you name it. They have just all the courage that they have. Courage is a really important word in any field that you're in. Thank you for your courage. And we tried so hard. We passed it in the House. How many times do I say that? Yeah. We passed DACA, the bill in the House, and but they couldn't, 60 votes in the Senate. That's a problem. But here's the thing. We are going to win this election. We must. We made a decision to win. So now we have to make every decision in favor of winning. And that means you and your daily lives about the calls, the postcards, the knocking on doors, and the rest of that, because we cannot leave anything on the table. It all has to come. But even winning, we must win the House of Representatives to protect the country. Hakeem Jeffries must have that gavel on January, when we get sworn in. But very importantly, on January 6th, says she immodestly, just as it was necessary for me to have the gavel on January 6th the last time. So then when they said to me, why don't you just do this vote on the Electoral College, an undisclosed location another day? I said, no. We're going to the floor of the House, and we're showing the American people and the world that we have prevailed, that our democracy is safe, and that they have failed, who came to, incited by the President of the United States, an insurrection against the Congress, against the Constitution, against the U.S. Capitol, in a violent manner. So Hakeem must have that gavel. I feel pretty, I will go, you talked about Washoe County, I'll be there early tomorrow morning to get out the vote in Reno and Nevada, because we're, again, just owning the ground. But we will win the House. Now, it's important for every reason, for the children, for health, for every subject you can name. But for saving our democracy, Hakeem, and he will win. I feel very good about that. I mean, we're not relaxing or anything. We're not taking anything for granted. Thank you, Emerita, for your help in all of this as well, and Roger, thank you so much. So that I think the best defense against whatever happens, to make things more positive or to stop what they might try to do, we must win the House. The Senate is a little tougher. We don't give up on anything, but it's a little tougher. But we still, I think that from what I see traveling around, there's going to be not a gender gap this year. It's going to be a gender gulf.
Okay.
A gender gulf and all of that. So I think that's the best defense, is to have the House of Representatives, as when we won in 2018.
Amen.
And stopped him in his tracks.
Amen, and you sure did. And how about that courage on January 6th? Will we ever forget how courageous this woman was, saving our republic? All right, Ronnie's got the microphone. We have time for one or two questions, so let's see. Who has a question? There's one right back there. All right.
Testing.
Well, first, thank you so much for coming.
Can you stand up and tell us your name?
Yes. So first, thank you so much for coming. My name is Alexandra Mosquera. I am a dreamer, so I really appreciated your words. I have a question in relation to your experience. You're a seasoned leader in Congress, and I just wonder, as someone who hopes to eventually become some sort of voice, how do you see established and both emergent voices having more of a say in the legislative process, specifically in issues like immigration reform and climate change? And I ask that because as someone who feels like I have a limited voice, I just want to know how I can be more involved.
Well, let me say that with all of the things we hope to accomplish for the people in the Congress, our inside maneuvering and compromise, the consensus building is all very important, but the best job that can be done is done in conjunction with the outside mobilization. There we are, the Nuns on the Bus network. You know the difference. So know your power in this. Know your power in collaboration with others, or joining up with another organization. On the Affordable Care Act, thank God for the nuns. There were others in the church I'm not thanking God for, but I thank God for the nuns, because their outside mobilization was so important, and it gave shall we say, protection to those who wanted to be for the bill, but were being falsely told that it was about terminating a pregnancy. It wasn't about that at all. but people were using that as an excuse not to encourage people to vote for it. But the outside, I cannot, in everything, own the ground in the election, own the ground in politics, own the ground in policy. So again, the strength of it all is the consensus that is built to make the policy sustainable over time, not just it's passed now. And of course, we have, with the network, we have worked together for, you know, we learn from you. And know that power too, because when we are talking with people, not to with people, it's to learn from them as we tell them how we see the horizon with all of it. But it is the most exciting thing, especially for students and young people, because the future belongs to you. It belongs to you. You are the future. And there's so many decisions that have to be made. As I talked about Thomas Paine and all of that, I have a grandbaby who I saw last night at an event in New York, and I said to the audience, this baby will live to the next century. And some of you students will as well. You'll live to the next century. So we have to make sure that the planet exists safely and sustainable. We have to make sure that the democracy is strong. And we have to make sure that the society is fair and just. And you have to play a role in that, because it's not just about how others see it, it's how you see it as well. And it is so enlightened by faith-based people weighing in on it too, because not about religion, but about values, So there, again, you could start your own group, you can join with some friends, or you can sign up with a network. And what a perfect name, network, right? It's a sense of community. And community has the word unity in it. So we're all striving to unite, and in this election, to get through these next days in a way that prepares us for the unity that we must build after the election. Right?
Thank you. I think we have another question there.
Hello, Madam Speaker. My name is Mary Shahady, and I'm a professor at Howard University, and I brought my nursing students with me today.
Don't be shy.
And my question is, what are your thoughts on how to empower young black women in today's society?
Black women?
Yes, ma'am, young black women.
We're about to elect a black woman president of the United States. That's a good question. I appreciate that question, and thank you for the work that you're doing with the students. Just be on Kamala for a second. Kamala Harris, I know her well from San Francisco and the Bay Area. She's a person of faith. Personally, I know her as a person of faith. I know her minister. I know her as a person of faith. So she cares about people, and that's what her motivation is, to be involved so civically and politically. Officially, strength. She has strength. She knows the policy. She knows the strategy. She's eloquent in her presentation. She's ready to be president of the United States. And politically, she's very astute. You do not get to be the nominee of the party unless you are politically astute. She knows how to win elections, and I can tell stories about that. And not only is she going to win, and Tim Walz going to, the two of them are going to win, going to help us win the House of Representatives, the Senate, hopefully the Senate, and governor's races and state races all over the country. In terms of that, let me speak from a standpoint of the House of Representatives. When I became Speaker, well, it's not a glass ceiling there. It's a marble ceiling. It's something so I always thought the country would have a woman president long before we would have a woman speaker, because the marble ceiling is just, it's as old as our country. So when people were encouraging me to run for leadership, they, the gentleman said, well, you know, you can't do that because we have people waiting, a pecking order of people waiting in line for when an opportunity presents itself, and there is a pecking order. I said, oh, really? Well, we've been waiting over 200 years. And they would say things like, who said she could run? Light my fire, you poor baby. I mean, I'm going to wait for you. And then third, they'd say, why don't you women just write down what you want on a piece of paper and give it to us, and we'll do that for you. Well, you haven't yet, so... So in any event, it wasn't, and that was just in the 2000s. I'm not talking about a long time ago, I'm talking about in the 2000s. So when I became, the reason I'm answering it this way, when I became speaker, I said, you know, we're going to do this in the most formidable, diverse way. It's going to be different. And we had like 7 or 8 members of the leadership at the time, the whip, many of the positions I had held. But now we have almost 20 because we created more positions. I put Barbara Lee, I created a position, the first black woman in the leadership. When I had the ability to name chairs of committee, the chair of the House Administration Committee, that's a big, powerful committee, an African-American woman. When I had the chair of the Ethics Committee as my appointment, an African-American woman, so that people saw them with gavels, and that gavel makes a lot of difference. Then we encouraged Maxine Waters, chair of one of the most powerful committees in the Congress. People said when Barney Frank, who I saw in Boston 2 nights ago, I mean, every day I'm in a different city, as you can see. I saw him and I said, remember when you were leaving and people said, well, Maxine, she's too liberal to be chair. And I said, Maxine will be the chair of the committee. And Eddie Bernice Johnson, the CHIPS Act we just passed, we lost her recently, but a couple years ago when we passed the CHIPS Act, that was Eddie Bernice Johnson of Texas. We're going to do chips, yeah, but she said, we're not doing chips only, that's now, that we're doing the future with it's now the CHIPS and Science Act. Established herself as an authority in the academic and scientific community, highly respected, and that moment came with that legislation. And then again, more African-American women taking leadership positions in subcommittees and the rest throughout the Congress. So in the Congress, it's a decision. You know, this is a decision. When I came to Congress, there were, as there are now, 435 members of Congress. 23 women. 23 women. 12 Democrats, 11 Republicans. As a former chair of the party, I said, this is not, of my state party, this is not the way it's going to be. Yeah. In this Congress, we have 94 Democratic women. They have like 30-some on their side. They made some. Right. But we want more. And it's not just about gender. It's about diversity in the gender. So it is, and it's not a zero-sum game. It's not if Maxine gets to be this, then they'll lose my chance to do that. No, every woman's success is every woman's success. Yeah, every woman's success.
Absolutely.
So, again, listening to the members. See, some of these new positions, I just said, I will no longer appoint the people, I want the group to elect them. So more people were elected by the caucus rather than just appointed by me. And we knew who, we wanted to see that diversity, identify who they wanted, A. And then B, the thing is that then the members said, well, how about if we have this position or that position, which were their ideas about how we bring more diversity in leadership. So we have now, I was very honored, just so proud to pass the torch to Hakeem Jeffries, a black man. I was just in Boston 2 days ago with Catherine Clark, fabulous. Pete Aguilar, Hispanic from California. Ted Lieu, Asian American from California. And then the list goes down of the beautiful diversity at the table. Yeah. So it is, it's a decision. As I said, when I became speaker, I said to all the chairmen who were there, I said, I want to tell you something. You're wonderful, so wonderful that you're going to show so much diversity in how you elevate members of your committee to positions of power, how you hire management staff, high-level staff, so people can see their point of view, their diversity, making these decisions as well. But again, it's a decision. I'm very proud. Our caucus is 70% women, people of color, LGBTQ.
Amen.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just tell you
There's one last question in the back, and then there's one question up here. So
from the class of
class of 64, we have to have, but this, you've been standing up in the back, and then we'll do this one.
I'm the class of 1984.
Okay.
So first, thank you, and it's so wonderful to hear you and see you, and your strength has been amazing. I am up at night because my concern is the younger generations have no idea what bipartisanship or what compromise really is about, right? I remember Tip O'Neill, I remember Ronald Reagan going to the Dubliner, right? Which I'm not even sure if many do that anymore. But what do you think is the cause of why there's such a break? Like, to have no memory of compromise is a scary thing. So,
yeah, well, I wouldn't exaggerate how much bipartisanship there was. There was bipartisanship, but everybody said, oh, and they went to dinner every night. No, you go to dinner with them. I go to dinner with my friend. They said, how many times have you been to dinner with Mitch McConnell? Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
You go to dinner with Mitch McConnell. So anyway, not to be disrespectful of your question, the fact is we have a strong responsibility for bipartisanship. And we do work together to try to achieve that. But to make it work, we have to have accountability so that people can see what is standing in the way of bipartisanship. It's not dysfunction, it's obstruction. Amen. It's obstruction on the part of the other side. That is what has intervened here. And then the third is transparency, again, so that people can see. But we have some areas where we do have some, when I say bipartisanship, it's not about the budget. You know, they want to give a tax break to the richest people in America. 83% of their tax bill, 83% of the benefits went to the top 1%, adding $2 trillion to the national debt, and that's what they want to do again, but this time it'll add $5 trillion to the national. So we don't have too much common ground there. But places that we do, I've worked for decades with the Republicans on human rights issues throughout the world. When we have votes on human rights in China, the Uyghurs, Hong Kong, Taiwan, that's not in China, but Taiwan, Tibet, it's like 400 to 2. You know, we have very strong, and then I go to the 2 and say, why'd you do that? Oh, I made a mistake. You know, it's just overwhelming. So we do have some areas where we can find a common ground. But when it comes to the budget, not. When they wouldn't send the money to Ukraine, I said to the speaker, people are dying because you're not. He said, well, I can't do it until we finish the budget bill. And you know what was holding up the budget bill? They did not want to give money to the WIC program for poor women, infant, and children, while they're giving $2 trillion to the richest people in America under what's his name, who used to be president. But here's what I do think. I think we have that obligation, and we know where some strengths are. And I've always called the Congress a kaleidoscope. Has it Democrats on this side, Republicans are sorry. But so you have a kaleidoscope and you see a beautiful design. Then you turn the dial and some colors go out and other colors come in. And that's how it is has been for legislation. So you never want to weaken anyone because they could be a strength the next time you turn that dial. Right. The biggest problem for us, and we have a solution for it, called the For the People Act, is the partisan redistricting. It is, Eric Holder has been magnificent in fighting all of this. Magnificent. I mean, visionary and values-based and like a revolutionary. I mean, really fabulous. And not to be to the advantage of Democrats, but to the advantage of the American people. If you can have fair redistricting, not partisan gerrymandering, you don't get these kinds of districts that the Republicans have. And the Republicans say to me, and Rita's heard me say this a million times, people that she knows in the Republican Party, high up, have said to me, we can't beat them in the primary. You have to beat them in the general. Then we can get back to what was at the beginning of the exchange, the debate, the discussion of ideas. What is the role of government? What is the role of the central government versus local government? The actual respectable debate of a democracy, rather than what's his name made me do it, so I can't vote for the immigration bill, even though I was part of putting it together. But I do think that one thing that's going to bring us together are the arts. Yeah. You come together, you laugh together, you cry together, you're inspired together, and for a moment you have something in common with somebody that you don't even want to have dinner with, but nonetheless, Mitch McConnell, for example. I'll never get over his not voting for conviction, but nonetheless, that's another story. Because he knew what was wrong there. But in any case, just think of that when you think of a play, a concert, a painting, young people in school participating in the arts. It really is something that is confidence building and community building. And again, it's a place where you can at least say, I know who you are, and we can have a conversation about something. But we have to pass the bill that you mentioned, Reverend, because it is, Pastor, it is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Yes, that is, John Lewis wrote 300 pages of the first bill that we're talking about, the For the People Act. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act had to have more hearings to establish the constitutional record, so it took a little bit longer. But in that bill we have the commission redistricting, doing away with it. And again, it may not even advantage Democrats numerically, but it will benefit the country philosophically because it'll be a fair discussion of ideas. Yes, ma'am.
Right. I'm Helen Mitchell, currently from Lewisburg, West Virginia.
Oh my God.
Thanks again for being here. My question is, after we elect Harris and Walz, what do you think are the prospects for, and I should mention that as Democrats, we're writing postcards and we are calling people.
Very good.
However, it is
outside of West Virginia.
It's kind of a ruby red state. Well, and we're trying to get the Democrats out in West Virginia because we want to know that we're there. We want each other to know we're there. We want the state to know we're there. But my question is, after this election of Harris and Walz, what do you think are the prospects of moving away from the electoral college system and getting to a point where a person's vote is equally represented no matter where they live?
You hear about the electoral college. We have this discussion all the time. Should we do away with it? Yes. Can we do away with it? Very hard. Right. Because again, it's about the Constitution. And it was, no offense to our friends from the South here, it was designed to solidify the power of the South and slavery. Yep. And so that it increased the leverage of those states. And so now we see, of course, some of the states that are blue or in the North, but we're hoping to win. But what we did do was pass legislation. It could be stronger, but we had to pass the Senate. Pass legislation that made the process for when we bring in the certificates, you know, in the beautiful boxes, there's certificates. If you are going to object, it's not just one person. You have to have more people signing up with you that you're going to object. There's certain things, because the Constitution is very clear about how this happens. It has to begin at a certain time. The Speaker calls the House to order. The President of the Senate comes, that would be the Vice President, comes over. This is very specific about these things. And we could change some of those things to make the process harder for them to do. Yeah. Harder for them to do. And right now you have, and what was sad about that night January 6th, with all the defecation on the floor and violence and horror and trauma and everything for not just members but staff and people maintaining the building, the press and all. What was horrible was, after all that, when we went to the floor to show the people, as I said earlier, overwhelmingly, led by their leadership, the Republicans voted overwhelmingly not to accept the results of the Electoral College, which had been presented by Republican officials in those states. Yeah. It was like, well, because, you know, what's his name? So, but it is going, now this year, just so you know this year, the federal government has determined that January 6th is a special national security event, like a Super Bowl or something, no, or maybe the inauguration. There are occasions where they want to foresee what could happen, and nobody could foresee a president inciting an insurrection, but nonetheless, now we know that he might. He's no longer president and no longer going to be president, but nonetheless. So that the safety will be better than it was before. And that, so again, here we are at Trinity College. So many friendships for us began here, so much challenge to our intellect and the rest to work harder and the rest. Our class was here when the election of John F. Kennedy, and I remember when we wanted to go to the inaugural ball, the sister who was in charge said, you have to be here by like 11 o'clock. I was like, we have worked our whole lives, our whole country, to have a Catholic president of the United States. We're not coming in at 11 o'clock.
Hey, all right. Thank you. Thank you. Speaker Pelosi,
let us thank Pat McGuire.
Can you believe this?
Let us thank Pat McGuire.
How about
Pat McGuire.
Isn't she wonderful? You are wonderful. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now,